the co-op has banned the sale of Israeli products. The co-op is to stop sourcing goods from Israel, Iran, and 15 other countries where it says there are international recognized rights abuses and violations of international law. The Mutual, which operates about 2,300 grocery stores in the UK, has drawn up a list of about 100 products affected by the change, including Israeli carrots and mangoes from Mali. Other countries covered by the ban, which will be gradually implemented from this month, include Russia, Syria, Belarus, Afghanistan, Myanmar, and Sudan. The co-op said the ban would cover ingredients for its own label products as well as whole items. The reason why the banning of Israeli products is the focus point here is because this is going against the grain of Western foreign policy. So I think that's quite significant. I think they've taken a brave stand. Now, the co-op likes to pride itself on doing business ethically. The one major factor in this is that it's a co-op. Obviously, the clue is in the name. Now, members' position on the business aren't legally binding, but the culture is so much better when you have a level of democratic participation in the workplace. Novel, I mean, it's very good to see the co-op is implementing this ban on multiple countries, including Israel, as I mentioned. Democracy within business is very important. And I think it's likely we wouldn't see these kinds of decisions without it.
Yeah, I think it's really important to take a look at the fact that this is democracy in action, essentially. It is quite literally from the bottom up ownership, because co op has a different public private ownership when it comes to companies, and solutions that aim to just sanction Israel as a whole. And I think it also speaks to the political sphere right now, because it's not just individual institutions which are within the political sphere taking a look at what Israel is doing as a genocide. I think it's also your average person that is getting fed up with what Israel is doing. And it mimics a lot of what the South African apartheid movement was like, and what co op did in the late 2010s, again with Palestine and Gaza. And we get a lot of doomerism around our political institutions in what works, what doesn't work, who they stand up for, and who they don't stand up for. But this truly is democracy full on in action. And I think we need to remember that at the end of the day, we do have different representatives once every couple of years that we vote for. We do have people that we have to rely on. But when people take things into their own hands, they have the ability to go forward and make real changes.
Democracy tends to result in better decision making, right? And it's why it's fundamental to have democracy in the workplace, that businesses are run and owned cooperatively. And there's a word for that, isn't there? It's called socialism. The time for centre-left politics is kind of over. We need to be talking about democracy in the workplace and a democratic economy. One, because it's the right thing to do. But two, with the rise of AI, the rentier economy, and the far right, who, by the way, do not capitulate and water down their message, I think only radical politics and socialism is the genuine answer, not just from a moralistic or correct point of view, but I think as a strategic point of view as well.
Yeah, and I think it really speaks to when we take a look at what systems are currently run, it is democracy, but who is it democracy for? And who owns our ability to make the decisions in our institutions? And like I said before, there is a lot of focus and emphasis on, with not bad necessarily channels, but things like electoralism, things like relying on people who are in parliament, without understanding there are mechanisms that exist under our current system, which means that even if you are well intentioned, power will get to you sometimes, money will get to you sometimes. However, the difference that we have as working class people is we don't have the same relation to all these different things in society as those who represent us. And I think Chomsky said it really well. And he said that if you create a system in which the individual doesn't have the ability to make democratic decisions in the economy, the individual doesn't have the ability to make democratic decisions in what their community looks like, then who is it really a democracy for? Because it's not a democracy for you. It's not a democracy for me. In fact, the system that came about wasn't one that was voted on democratic choice. It came about because we were shifting from feudalism to capitalism. And so we have to ask ourselves, if systemic change is different, if these different systems do benefit individuals and different classes, then maybe it is time to look at creating a message, a populist message, right? which puts forward radical change and puts forward real material difference to your average person.
Capitalism, in my view anyway, it is ending. It's not about, because I stopped calling myself an anti-capitalist. I call myself a post-capitalist now, because it no
Right.
longer makes sense to say anti-capitalist, because we're not fighting to bring down capitalism. Capitalism is absolutely ending. I think we're going to go into some kind of techno-feudalism. And the point of us on the left is to say, capitalism is ending. Make a choice. Do you want to continue where power is continually concentrated in a handful of the few? Or do you say, look, we're facing multiple crises under capitalism. These crises are going to carry over in the next system. We need to have a revolution that isn't the bourgeois revolution, because obviously capitalism that grew out of feudalism was a bourgeoisie revolution. We need to have, in the history of the world, potentially the first ever working class revolution. So it's about where we're going next rather than bringing down the current system.
Yeah, and I think just one last thing, what has happened with the co-op specifically shows that workers do have the capability to make those decisions. It is about political choice. When parties, when politicians, when our governments that represent different countries like Israel and corporations that do trade with Israel say, you know what, we can't sanction settlers. We can't actually stop products coming in from here. It's too hard. We can't find where the products are. We need to uphold F-35 parts to allow for peace and to use the supply chain against Russia. It shows that these are just excuses, and we have the ability to make those decisions on our own. And what the government does, and along with these different corporations and these politicians, is give us excuse after excuse after excuse, and we shouldn't allow them to take us for mugs. We should be honest and know we know exactly what's going on, because if we were in charge, we would be able to make those decisions. And this is just another example of neglecting away from that sort of doomerism that, the left isn't doing anything, workers can't do anything. But it shows in practice we can absolutely have a situation in which we make the right decisions for us and for everyone else around the globe.
Support independent media. Support social justice that's there on social media. Thank you. Turn left.